Since the CM450 doesn't have a fuel pump or a gas gauge, the only non-mounting connection we need to disconnect is the fuel line feeding from the petcock into the carburetor. Even when we turn the petcock to the off position, there may still be a little bit of fuel in the line itself. So be prepared to catch a little bit of gasoline when you disconnect this line. Alternatively, you can just run the engine for a little bit with the petcock in the off position to clear the line, or you could use one of the drain screws on the bottom of the carburetor float bowls to get rid of the extra fuel. This next step is optional, but I like to do it just to keep the panels from getting splashed with gasoline. Just grab the bottom of the side panel and pull it towards you. This will release it from the grommets. Do the same thing for the other side. Next, we need to remove the seat and place it aside. To remove the seat, just toggle the seat release levers located just above the wheel well. There's a toggle lever on both sides of the bike. This next step is also optional, but it's always the safest way to work, and that is to disconnect the battery. Always disconnect the negative side first. We can then disconnect the fuel line connection at the carburetor. The type of clamp you have installed might look like mine or might not, and the fuel line you have might also be made of rubber and could possibly be difficult to remove. The best way to deal with stubborn connections is to rotate the fuel line back and forth while gently pulling on it until it comes free. This is the part where some fuel splashage might occur, so it's a good idea to have some rags nearby just in case. There's only one bolt holding down the tank, so we need to remove it using a 12mm socket. Under the bolt will be a washer and a metal spacer inserted into your tank mounting bushing. These bushings are normally made from a black rubber that tends to dry rot and break apart over time. The one that you see here is a prototype casting I made out of high temperature silicone. As you can also see, my prototype has already failed, so I will need to make another one with some added revisions next time. I'll put a little clip of the casting block at the end of the video if you're curious in seeing it. I like to drop the bolt and the washer back into the bushing just so that I don't lose them, and then I lift the tank up and wiggle it straight out. Depending on how much fuel you have left in the tank, this could be really lightweight or it could be a little bit heavy. The two mounting posts on the frame should have bushings installed, and the posts basically slide right into the slots on the tank. It's important not to rest the tank on the petcock as it can damage it, so I just take a box or some kind of a shim underneath the corner of the tank like this. You just want to make sure the petcock isn't touching the ground, and it should be good. To reinstall the tank, just guide the slots on the bottom of the tank onto the two mounting posts on the frame. Once they're in there, you can slowly lower the rear of the tank into position. Make sure your bushing is installed and aligned well, and then put the spacer, washer, and bolt back into position. You don't really need to torque this bolt down really tight, just make sure it's snug and it won't vibrate loose. After that, reconnect your fuel line and make sure the clamp is adjusted tight enough. You can turn the petcock on to check for leaks. Reconnect the battery, pop the side panels back on, and finally put the seat back into place. That should finish it up. Here is the bonus tank bushing video clip. My original bushing had completely fallen apart and I wasn't even able to hold it in place anymore. So I measured out its dimensions and tried to recast the new one in high temperature silicone. This is my prototype casting mold. It's made of 5 different parts and is designed to be reusable. The bushing worked well for a while, but eventually it broke along a weak point in the design. So at least I know that's what part to beef up in the next revision. I'll put up an update video when I eventually get around to making that second revision, so keep an eye out for it if you're interested.